So thank you all for attending. We do have a very exciting topic today. So cohort-based learning strategies for online learning courses is a proven and easy to implement way to create a community of learners who will be able to retain and apply their learnings from course completion. Our first webinar on this topic generated a lot of interest, and for good reason, which is why we invited Andy to be back with us today to give us more details and next steps. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please definitely put them in the Q&A section, whether they're about LearnDash or cohort-based learning, and we'll get to them. And to give an intro to Andy, he is our subject matter expert today, co-founder of Training Spark and Candle Digital, and he spent nearly 20 years designing, building, and scaling online learning products and courses. He's passionate about the potential of online learning to transform lives and help people reach their full potential. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Andy, and we can get started whenever you are ready.
Awesome. Well, it's great to be back, and hello and welcome to everyone. It's lovely to have so many people join us today. So as Nina says, in the previous webinar, I outlined what a cohort-based course format is, what it involves, and why you should seriously consider it as an approach for your online courses in the future. So in this webinar, we're going to take the next steps. So I'm going to focus on the practical implementation of a cohort-based format into LearnDash. And I've got 5 key steps that I'm excited to walk you through. So if you didn't attend the previous webinar or haven't watched the replay, don't worry at all. I'm going to touch on some of the key points before we dive into the detail. If you did want to watch that back, there is a recording on the Training Spark YouTube channel, so feel free to go and check that out. Before we dive in, I just want to build a little bit on Nina's kind introduction about what we do at Training Spark. So as Nina said, I've spent nearly 20 years designing, building and scaling online learning products, programs and courses. And we've picked up quite a few stories and scars along the way that really inform what we do. I've studied digital education at master's level, so I've got a good grasp of not only learning technologies, but also approaches to online education too, and how the two join up. Also joining me on today's session is Mark Langdale. He's the technical director at Training Spark. Many of you may recognize his voice from the LearnDash how-to videos on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and he'll be helping with any kind of technical questions. He's the real brains behind the outfit. I'm certainly not. So if there are any challenging technical questions about implementing cohorts that you have, fire them across and I'll happily divert them Mark's way. So just in case you weren't aware of what we do at Training Spark, now, we've created several WordPress plugins that really complement the fantastic foundation that LearnDash provides. And these plugins are all just based on actual client work that we've done through our agency business, Candle Digital. And one of these is Cohort Manager. We created Cohort Manager on the back of, I'd say, surging demand for cohort-based learning. It's a format that we just get more and more requests for in the agency business that we have. And I'll be talking you through how you can use Cohort Manager later in the webinar. But enough about us, enough about Training Spark. Let's get stuck in. So before I really dive into the detail about the intricacies of implementing a cohort-based learning format, I just wanted to reiterate some of the key reasons why we believe at Training Spark that when it comes to online learning, a cohort-based format can be particularly powerful. Now, there's three reasons. Now, obviously, I like lists with numbers, so this time there's 3 reasons. So the first one is connection. So a great benefit of a cohort-based format is that you're bringing people together. You're bringing students and learners together to do your online program. And the opportunity there is around interaction and connection. So our perspective is that learning can often be better or have more impact when it's done together. Online learning is often seen as a single player game, through on-demand learning, but that's often a bit of an assumption and a bit of a default. And we like to challenge the norm. We think cohort-based learning can be delivered really effectively online. So cohort-based courses bring the opportunity for people to share their stories, their histories, their contexts of their industry, thus their successes and challenges at implementing what you've taught into their daily or working lives. And we found that through our clients that a lot of the connections that people have developed with each other last way beyond the course itself. So there's almost like a network effect. And that's brilliant from a learning perspective, but it's also can be really quite powerful from a marketing perspective as well, in the form of creating, ambassadors and evangelists for your programs. So that's the first one, connection. Second one for us is motivation. So we found that a cohort-based format provides some particular advantages over on-demand learning when it comes to motivation, particularly around making progress. Now, as you've assembled a group of learners, there's a sense of, what should I say, like an accountability to each other. So particularly if you involve live calls in your cohort-based course format, which I'll touch on, people want to keep up. They want to contribute. They don't want to be that person that turns up on the video call having not done anything. So it kind of pushes people to progress and really extract the full value from the program. And a unique nature of cohort-based learning is that it runs over a specific time. So, December 2024, for example, and that can present marketing opportunities and a motivation to purchase or enroll onto a specific program. Because if you're selling a program that starts in December, hey, well, you better get enrolled now. And it creates this sense of urgency that you can tap into from a marketing perspective. With a cohort-based program, you may also have a fixed number of seats, a limited number. So again, you can use scarcity and not only deadlines, but scarcity as a way of driving interest in what you do. So that's number 2, motivation. Finally, it's about enabling practice. As cohort-based courses happen over a period of time, it gives learners the chance to, absorb what you're teaching them, go away and try and implement in what they've learned into their daily lives. Come back, report on their results, recalibrate feedback, and that can all help lead to better outcomes. We found that the cohort-based courses that we've worked with on our clients um, really do well when it's aligned to a project-based outcome. So use that mentality when it comes to designing your program. And the way we say it's like learning to ride a bike. You might get the theory of, balance, and you need to pedal fast to move. But until you get on the saddle, until you fall off a few times and find your balance, you won't be a competent cyclist. You can't just know, you have to do, and that's what we found. We found with cohort-based courses that enable, that far better. So that was number 3. So those are the 3. But let's get stuck into the 5 steps. So you might suspect that the first place to start is to set up your LearnDash platform correctly. But we believe that it's really important to get the learning experience right and the content right before you start tinkering in your LearnDash platform. So the first step from our perspective is to analyze your course. So I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to assume that if you're watching this webinar, either live or in a recording, you probably already have an online course, and it's likely that's going to be an on-demand version or a self-study version. So my recommendation would be is if you are thinking of a cohort-based course format, is before you jump in, start tinkering with things, is to really step back and just think about your approach. So the first thing you need to figure out is a schedule for your cohort-based course. So how long is it going to last? What kind of cadence is it going to run at? Now, many of our clients choose to split their course into weeks. So they might have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, for example. And some of the client courses we've done have been as long as 12 weeks. The shortest is 2 weeks. It really depends on the outcome you're trying to achieve. It depends on the price point you can provide. It's the value you want to add. So a real good understanding of your audience will help you with that. The next thing to do is to decide whether you want to add live workshops or Zoom calls like this. And if you do, how you're going to align them to those weeks. So it could be one every week, it could be one every fortnight, a couple of times a week. The key really is don't see the live calls as an opportunity to teach. So my perspective is instead use the opportunity when you've got everyone together to discuss, collaborate, feedback, answer questions on the fly, deep dive into a real important subject. Now you may use slides as a bit of a backdrop to the call and to give it some structure, but it's all about using that valuable contact time wisely. Many of our clients challenge their learners to practice something or do something. Go out there into your workplace and do this. And then what they do is they come into the call and relay their findings. What was really tough? What did you find worked really well? And that's the gold dust that's often missed from on-demand courses. So rather than just going deep in, taking all of your content, split it into weeks, take a step back, think about the opportunities your students now have to practice, reflect, get support from the course instructor, communicate with each other, and use that to design your course. So we use Miro for this process. We found that a great tool. You may have seen it. It's basically an online whiteboard. And that's what you can see in front of you is actually an early draft of a cohort-based course design structure we created with a client. So you can see at the top, we've got several weeks. What we did for each week is we outlined first what we think a learner should feel, think, do, and know by the end of that week. And that helped us figure out, what we're going to include in the workshop, or what are we going to deliver through the on-demand elements. And that really kind of sharpened our focus around that. So I want you to try and take the mindset of designing learning experiences rather than just cutting up your content in certain ways. And a cohort-based course gives you the amazing opportunity to design something that can have a real long-lasting impact on people. So don't use just this opportunity to try and pour more knowledge into people's heads. Use the opportunity to discuss, share, practice, and feedback. So, in terms of a cohort-based course format, the backbone of your course will be something like this. This is your on-demand content structured into weeks or days, whatever kind of cadence you choose. And this is where you're teaching the theory. This is where you're imparting your wisdom, but you don't necessarily need to be in the room. So you're going to do this through your on-page content in LearnDash, videos, LearnDash quizzes. If you're using something like H5P to bring it all to life, that's where that would be included. Then you overlay your online workshops. So as I say, most of our clients do these every week or two. You would typically have a welcome one where the welcome call is all about drumming up enthusiasm, setting expectations, letting them know what's coming, and getting people to connect and getting people to introduce themselves and get to know each other. The last call is always a celebration. So, give people the virtual pat on the back and the round of applause, get the party balloons in. They've had an amazing experience over several weeks, and they can really reflect on how far they've come over that time. And then you may have some calls in between just to intersperse the content and really hammer home and, build on those concepts you want to teach. Finally, we want to make sure we're having impact. So we don't want your audience or your learners to really forget what they've learned at the end of the course. You know what it's like. I've been as guilty as any. I'll do a training course, and then within 2 days, I'm back in business as usual. I've forgotten most of what's been said. I might remember 2 or 3 nuggets. What we would really recommend is using the opportunity to reinforce that by sending scheduled emails to reaffirm key points, stay on the radar, and help people apply the theory that you've taught over time. Because things take time. Behavior change, building new skills and capabilities, that takes time, practice, and feedback. So really support that as best you can. So that's step one. You've got your cohort-based course structure outlined. Now it's a case of starting to do some of the technical implementation. And this is really where the technical work starts to kick in. So step 2 is creating your base course in LearnDash. So this is one of our clients' courses. We use in LearnDash. We use in BuddyBoss here, the BuddyBoss theme. So what we do is, with this client, we've split basically LearnDash lessons into weeks. So we have an introduction here. This is available as soon as you book on the book on the course or book on the program. But what we've done is, for example, this LearnDash lesson here is week 1. We have another LearnDash lesson, which is week 2. And the content inside it sits within LearnDash topics. So you'll notice here, I've got live workshop 1. So what we often do is we create a LearnDash topic called live workshop 1. And what we would do in there is drop the link to the Zoom call or the Google Meet. And if we've recorded the session, for anyone that's missed out on the cohort, we upload that. Now, the challenge is if you're not using something like Cohort Manager, it can be really difficult to manage that. So, because you obviously don't want people that are not in that cohort to see that content. So, Cohort Manager handles that really well, and I'll show you how. So, once you've built that base course, then you need a tool to administer that as a cohort-based course, and that's when you download and install Cohort Manager. So, Cohort Manager is a Training Spark plugin. It's a premium plugin that complements LearnDash really well. We have hundreds of clients that are using that in conjunction with LearnDash to deliver cohort-based courses. So the great thing about Cohort Manager, obviously we love it because we built it, but it works for several reasons. The first one is it allows you, or makes it possible that you don't have to duplicate a course for each cohort you set up. So you could have, we've got clients that maybe have 200 to 300 cohorts, or that are in the system, and they're using the same base course, so that the administrative overhead is really simple. You can also manage the cohort workflow, what we call the workflow, all from one screen. So you're not having to log into individual lessons or topics and setting them up that way. And the final thing is you can insert cohort-specific content into the course. So if you want something to be added to a page or a LearnDash topic that only that cohort can see, for example, a Zoom link or a recording, you can do all that with Cohort Manager. So step 4, once you've installed it, got it set up on your LearnDash platform, then we need to set up a cohort workflow. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch to Cohort Manager now and show you how we do that in practice. So if I go to, so just bear with me 1 second. So if I share this, so apologies, let's find this. So if I share this, so what you should see on screen now is a LearnDash platform. Now, what we've got is a demo site here. This is using LearnDash. It's got Cohort Manager, and we have a basic Astra theme on this. So I'm going to run you through the process now of setting up a cohort workflow using Cohort Manager. So if I show you the course itself, so we're going to use something, a dummy course that we've created called Healthy Eating for Healthy Life. So this is just, lorem ipsum content, but you can see here, what I've done is I've set up the basis of the course already in LearnDash. So we have welcome, live workshop 1 is a lesson. I made that a lesson. We have week 1, we have live workshop 2. So I've already created this structure in LearnDash. The first thing we need to do is we need to log in to our admin area, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a group. So this is all using initially LearnDash groups. So let's set up a new group. I'll call this, let's do a cohort in December. So I've got this brand new course. I'm running a cohort in December. I'm going to call that cohort 1. I'm going to just make sure that's a closed group. And then I'm going to add the course into this group. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a test user so you can actually see what it looks like. So let's add John Doe to that. So let's create that cohort there. And that's been created. Now, if I switch to this view here, you should be able to see the front page of a course. So if I'm logged in here as John Doe. So if I go to all courses, I click onto Healthy Eating for Healthy Life. So John Doe can now see his course, and it's exactly the same at the moment. So he's in this cohort, and you can see exactly the same. So we need a way of dripping this. I don't want anyone to be able to see week 1 until
Andy,
I do. Yeah.
sorry, can I just do? We're just seeing the admin
Okay.
screen there, not the other ones.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Can you see that now?
That one looks
Mark,
like the Zoom call.
okay. Okay. Apologies. Let me sort this out. So, I'll tell you what. Let me go back to. So can you see? Are we back in LearnDash admin area? No,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark. If you just want to stay on. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we are going to set up a workflow in Cohort Manager. So if I go to Cohort Manager, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my first workflow. So a workflow is the series of interactions that are going to happen as you for that cohort. So let's create my first workflow, and I'm going to give that a name. So the name I'm going to give it is the same. So I want to create a workflow for this course here. So I'm going to give it the name. The group is the group I created. The course I want to manage is this healthy eating for healthy life. And there are two formats I can pick in Cohort Manager. One of them is specific dates. The other is X days from course start. So if you want to, with specific dates, everything on the workflow has a specific date and time that it happens. And now that's great for control, but more work when you want to clone a workflow and change. So X days from course start dates, what you do is you set an initial, a starting date, and everything hangs off that. The beauty of that is it's very easy to clone and change. So I'm going to show you this example. So I'm going to set that. Imagine the first date of the call, or the course starts on the 1st of December. And the first call is going to be, say, at midday. So so if I create that workflow, what I've got in here now is an ability to build my interactions in this workflow. So if you remember on the course, sorry. So I'm only in admin view here. What I want is when people log into the course for the first time, they can see these two topics. They can see, the welcome, and they can see live workshop 1, because I want them to be able to, know when the actual workshop's going to happen. But what I want to do is I want to hide week 1 and live workshop 2 until the day the actual course starts. So I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to go into Cohort Manager. I'm going to edit this. So what I want to unlock a lesson. I want to unlock that lesson, which is week 1, Foundations of Nutrition. I want to unlock it at the time the program starts. So all I'm going to do here is put in 0. So on the 1st of December at 12 o'clock, this is going to unlock. The same thing, I want the information for live workshop 2 to appear at the same time. So if I click into this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to layer up. So I want the next ones to appear 7 days later. All I need to do is click 7 and then choose that, and it starts to build up over time. So and what I'll do is I'll show you at the end. I'll log in as John Doe, because obviously I'm having a little bit of difficulties with this. I'll log in as John Doe and show you what this looks like on screen. But at the moment, all I'm doing is I'm building up how things are going to be released in my cohort, in my online course. So we get in there now. So this one will be released 14 days afterwards. Unlock lessons. So this one will be week 4, and that will be 21 days. Unlock lesson. So as you can see, it's really easy just to build up these interactions over time. And then the final one is wrap up at the end. So when we do the last call, live workshop 5, then wrap up would open as a LearnDash lesson. So I'm going to do this slightly differently. I'm going to build all of this, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. So now I have my workflow. I need to activate that. So that's now active. So when John Doe logs into this course, he will only be able to access the first 2 lessons, and all the rest will be unlocked as per this schedule here. Now, let's say that I wanted to add a Zoom link into one of the workshop topics. What I can do is I can use cohort shortcodes for that. So if I scroll down here, I've got a bit of a shortcode here that I can use to insert into content. So if I copy that to my clipboard, I go in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the course. I'm going to go into my first live workshop here, the topic I've created. Now, if I want a piece of content that only that person can see, what I do is edit the copy. I'm just using Gutenberg here, so shortcode, and I can paste that in here. So you'll see here, this is, if you put content in between these tags, only people within that cohort can see that information, which is quite a powerful tool. So I could say, your live workshop is taking place on date here is the link, and then I can insert the link. I can add that in there. So I save that, and only that cohort, the person in that cohort will be able to see that copy of that text on screen. And we have some of our clients, they have pages with 50, 60 of these, but the individual in the cohort can only see that specific information. Let's try something else. How about I want to drop in the start date, so people, when they log in, they're clear on when it actually starts. What I can do is I can use these shortcodes here. So I can copy the start date here, this piece of shortcode here, and I might want to put that on the front page of the course. So let's put it here. So maybe if I put it down here, so I can say, let's put it in here. So if I go shortcode, so your course starts on, let's put that in. So if I save that, what I'll do now is I'll log in as John Doe, and I'll show you what this all looks like. So if I just go to here, John Doe, I'm just going to switch in and log in as that person. So first of all, if I go to that course now that John Doe is enrolled on, so first of all, I can see here that John Doe can see when his course starts. You can also see that these sessions are actually locked, and it tells you when they're actually available. Now you can use CSS and your own styling to customize that, but that's the same course, but it's been tailored for him. And if I go into Live Workshop 1, I can also see that content that only John in his cohort can see. So that's a quite powerful tool that you can use. And it's a great way of using the same course in many different ways for different cohorts. So let me log in as, if I log in as, back to myself, let me show you just a couple of other things. So say, for example, you had a cohort, it's gone really, really well, and you want to deliver another one in January. All you need to do, if you're using this format, is to clone it. So let's do January, or let's call it February even. February cohort 2025. Now, I've set up these groups already, but if I clone that, so all of a sudden, I've got a new cohort workflow. And if I then change this date to the 1st of February, click update and activate that, if people enroll onto that group, it will have the same view as John Doe, but all the dates will be different. And I can insert different content for that only that cohort can see. So it's a very powerful way of rapidly spinning up cohort-based courses doing that. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what Cohort Manager can do. Let me switch back to my slides. Now I've shown you how to set that up. So if I stop sharing, I go back to my slides. So now you've set up your cohort workflows. Technically, you're ready to go. But as with all digital products and experiences, there's a final critical step, and that's to test, deliver, and refine. So this is often overlooked. Basically, we want to avoid your learners end up in a situation like this, where they feel like this. And our suggestion would be, once you have set up your course, test it thoroughly end to end. It seems obvious, but we see so many clients of ours want to announce their product to the world without doing a sufficient pilot. And you'll find through that pilot that you'll learn a lot about the way the course flows, both in terms of the on-demand content and the live content. You'll find out what lands well and what doesn't. And being candid, if you're doing video workshops for the first time, there's a lot to learn, especially if it's something that's quite new to you. So the great thing about cohort-based courses, if you are going to be the instructor or as part of the course, is you can get direct and in-the-moment feedback with your learners on the live video workshops. So ask them, ask them what's worked well, what's not worked well, what can be improved, what they'd like to focus on, and use that feedback to shape how you deliver the future cohorts. So those are my 5 steps. Hopefully number 4 wasn't too clunky and you got a good idea of how to set it up in Cohort Manager. Just before I finish and we move on to questions, I just want to share some top tips. So I've got 3 of these. As you know, I love numbered lists. So the first one is to really hammer the social aspects. Think about how you can connect and bring social elements to your courses outside of the live workshops. So what a lot of our clients do is they have an external channel where learners on the course or on the program can converse and share outside of the course itself. So WhatsApp is a great opportunity. LinkedIn groups is great. You can also do that within your learning platform, and we use BuddyBoss. So where people can comment on specific subjects and actually on the page. So it allows them to learn from each other asynchronously, not just on the live workshops, but as they're going through the course. So, the beauty of cohort-based courses is if you brought these people together. So do that. There is a video on our YouTube channel on how you can implement that in BuddyBoss. So check that out, or just drop us a line if you have any questions. The second one is really do prepare for your live sessions. Don't just show up. So again, slides work really well, but use them as a backdrop. Use them as the way to scaffold the session rather than as a way for you to teach. So we found that people can maybe focus in on one subject. Definitely use breakout rooms if you can. Again, get people talking, sharing, connecting, and use that contact wisely. Finally, is think carefully about how you are going to enroll people onto your cohort-based courses. So at Candle Digital and Training Spark for B2C sales, we use Events Calendar and WooCommerce. So Events Calendar is another stellar WP product. We find it works really well with WooCommerce. And Events Calendar has that sense of things happening at a certain time, or the starter dates, and it also has a sense of seats. So if you're doing a cohort in December that only has 20 places, then we found Events Calendar is a great way to manage that. For B2B, where you're selling into organizations, ourselves personally, we use Organizational Toolkit, which is another Training Spark plugin, but I would check out Groups Plus. So Groups Plus is a LearnDash product, and I would seriously have a look at that as an option as a way to sell into B2B as well. But my point here is think carefully. You don't want the course experience to be great, but the enrollment experience to be poor or clunky. But yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn too. But yeah, I hope that was useful. I hope that gave you a good idea of how to practically implement cohort-based learning into your courses. We firmly believe that cohort-based learning is a really, really powerful format that deserves a bit more attention. And we do think there's a lot of opportunity for course creators and subject experts out there to have more impact and have more learners on their courses through a cohort-based course format. So yeah, and we'd love to open it now over to questions.
That was great. Thank you, Andy. If anybody has questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A. I see that there's already quite a few in there. And we'll keep answering as many as we can. The first question, could you please give a small overview of the third point again?
The third point, I believe that was download and install Cohort Manager. So Cohort Manager is a premium plugin. It works really well with LearnDash. So if you want to download and install it, all you have to do is go to our website at training-spark.com. Have a look at the landing page there. It has all the information on Cohort Manager. From there, you can purchase and download Cohort Manager, and once you've got the zip file, it's just like installing any other plugin onto WordPress platform. Get that installed, get that set up, and then use point 4, which was all about implementing that to set up your workflows.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. The next one, how often and how many emails do you recommend to send after a course?
Really good question. Really good question. So I think the political answer is it depends. But to give you some examples, so some of our one of our clients, she's a personal brand expert. You actually saw some of her screenshots on the course in there. So she has a core 4-week program. So that's where they're learning the basics and the bedrock of how to build your personal brand. Now, she has a chain of emails which actually lasts for about 5 months after the program. So in essence, it's a 6-month program. It's got 4 months where you've got the first real core intervention where people are learning and doing their course, but then you've got 5 months and it's usually one a week. But what it is all about, it's all about, you know what, life happens. You know, that's the thing with all these things. You learn something and then life happens. Netflix,
Mhm.
jobs to do, kids, you know, meeting up with friends. And these things tend to get off the radar quite quickly. So it's a really good way of just keeping that on the radar. So, for example, if in your program you say one of the recommendations might be to reassess your values, then what she has done, Deborah, is 3 months in. It's like, well, hey, 3 months in, it's time to rethink your values. Go back and have a look at this section of the course, and it's a really good way of reinforcing some of the key concepts, but just literally staying on the radar. We are also some of the things we do. It's not included in Cohort Manager, but we also look at SMSs or text messages. Just and you know, you have to be very kind of light touch with those, but it's just a way of saying, hey, how are you getting on with what you've learned?
Awesome, thank you. How would a customer get into the right cohort? This person sells their courses through WooCommerce and they are landing in groups. How would that work?
Mark, I'd like to defer to you if that's okay.
Switch these on.
Mhm.
So people get into groups before they are involved in Cohort Manager. So cohort workflows are based on a group's access to a course, and they can get into that group in a variety of different ways. You know, you can use the LearnDash interface to add people to groups. Like you said there, you can use WooCommerce to add people to groups. Other plugins will be able to do that, but that all happens before Cohort Manager kicks in and does anything really. Cohort Manager is managing their access to the course once they're actually in the group. So, you know, the way you get them into the cohort depends on how you've set up your site and how you sell or distribute your courses.
But if you did have a specific situation or context that you wanted our help on, you know, feel free to get in contact with us on the Training Spark website, and we're more than happy to guide you through that process. No problem at all.
Awesome. All right. The next one, is there an advantage to using the unlock lesson feature of Cohort Manager versus using a drip content course in LearnDash?
Yeah, so the great thing about using it in Cohort Manager is, and drip functionality is available in LearnDash as core. The great is that you can do it, you can see all of the unlocking in one screen for your cohort. So you can build up that picture rather than having to go into each individual lesson and topic and administer it. I can do it all in Cohort Manager in one screen. And the beauty of that is once you've got all those interactions laid out, is you can then duplicate or clone that whole workflow and apply it to something else. So you're not then having to go into each individual lesson or topic again for the next cohort. So it's literally like a cookie cutter approach that allows you to implement and deliver cohort-based courses very quickly. Mark, is there anything else to add to that?
And I think that's fine. It's all efficiency of effort, really. You know, you're doing things
Yeah,
once rather than having to do things lots of
yeah.
times. So yeah,
And
that's
what I
right.
would say is that, you know, we've built Cohort Manager based on trying to do this ourselves. You know,
Mm.
we're using this stuff in real time and with our clients. So it's what we found is the best way to deliver these cohort-based experiences.
Great. This one is similar to a previous one. What is the sweet spot for long-term benefits of engagement after the cohort has been completed?
Yeah, I think it's really, it all comes down to understanding your audience really, and the beauty of it is, you know, you when you're doing an on-demand or an e-learning course, you don't really have an interaction with that person at all. You know, you might transact with them and you might be involved in the sale, for example, but if it's all self-service, you won't have any interaction. The great thing is if you are the instructor of the course, you can build up a great relationship with your learners, and that can be really powerful from a learning perspective or an educational perspective. But from a commercial perspective and from an insights perspective, you're going to build great relationships. So I go out there and ask them, you know, what works well, you know, what kind of support do you want and you need, and just try and deliver on that. I think it's all about connecting with your audience and really, I guess, walking in their shoes. You know, 3-4 months down the line after the intervention, what kind of information and what kind of support would really serve the audience well.
That's great feedback. The next one, can you go into a bit more depth about the advantage of the cloud-based version?
Is that cloud-based
Is
LearnDash?
that
It looks
yes?
like
No, we. Do you want
it.
to answer that question, please? So
Um,
if you can.
all right. So when through using the cloud-based version of LearnDash, you get not just LearnDash, but the entire hosting as well, right? Which is managed by the cloud team. So one of the best advantages is that the resources can be expanded on demand, and you don't have to request for extra resources if you anticipate a spike. We automatically scale up the resources and scale them down when the spike is over. Okay, so that's one of the main highlights. And apart from that,
Great.
it's all completely managed by the support team of LearnDash Cloud. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Naveed.
All right.
The next one, can you give a bit more detail about setting up the admin overhead for a cohort manager?
Um, in terms of setting that up, obviously we've gone into a bit of detail on that. We do have, if they want to drop us a line or drop us an email, we're more happy to walk them through it. We do have lots of walkthrough videos on our YouTube channel
Mm.
where we literally go through it step by step. So we can send you the link, or we can, we can figure that out. Certainly point you in the right direction. It is quite, it is quite involved, but there's a few steps to it. But the thing is, it's like anything else. Once you've got used to it and you're learning how to do it, we do this. We're setting this stuff up every day for our clients. So it does become quite easy over time.
Perfect. How many people make sense to have in one cohort? This person works with people who have gambling addictions and have a large number of students.
Oh wow, that's an amazing question, a really good question. So again, the politician's answer is it depends, but I would think it depends on the kind of the nature of the audience. So I would suggest a cohort, anything more than 20, and it starts to become a bit less the connections. You can't build the connections as well. But I think it's just how you approach it. So I've personally been on cohort-based courses that have a lot more than that, and it still works quite well because I've still had the opportunities to connect with people either in breakout rooms or in for example, using some of the external channels like LinkedIn and WhatsApp, and also, as I mentioned, the course has prompted questions so I was getting to know people through that. I think it's trying to find that balance. I think it's almost again, gambling might be quite a tough subject for people. So from my, I don't know much about that area, but I would imagine the closer the connections, perhaps if they feel quite vulnerable or fragile, then having smaller groups might serve that better in terms of getting better outcomes, because they perhaps be more building those personal relationships would be actually more important to that process. So it does depend. I think if you're looking to have a cohort where everyone kind of knows each other, I wouldn't suggest any more than 12 to 13, if I'm honest with you. Anything beyond that, I think it starts to become, there's a few people in there that are going to be a bit more anonymous. And, as well, if you're going to have video calls where people are chatting, it's a little bit easier not to show up. And it's a little bit easier to hide in the kind of digital corners a little bit more. So it depends on what kind of cohort-based experience you want.
That makes sense. Thank you. The next question is, could you use Cohort Manager in a way that allows specific groups to gradually gain access to the subsequent trainings? They would like to keep them divided into different courses, not lessons.
That's interesting. So we have one thing I didn't show you on Cohort Manager is one of the interactions you can add is enroll in another course. So, for example, we have some people where they get to the end of the cohort workflow, and then actually the next interaction is to roll onto another course, and that has its own cohort workflow. So you can kind of stagger these things. Again, more than happy to help with your specific situation and your specific context. So drop us an email, and we'll work that through with you.
Great, thank you. Practically speaking, how different is it to update a course to a cohort style when their LearnDash course is already established?
Ooh, interesting. I think that comes firstly from that analysis. So if you do that analysis first, you may find that actually it's 99% the same or 100% the same.
Mm.
I think my point there was, don't just assume.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're thinking at it really from that top level, that helicopter view, rather than just, I've got all this content, it's already shaped up, I can use it as is. You may be able to, and you may be able to add workshops, but you may go through. So, for example, you may say in your first lesson, you may think, you know what, this topic, we should actually talk about this rather than. So, what I might do is I might just introduce it, have less, less information on it, and actually then use it as a discussion topic in the actual live workshops. So it may be at that level as well. So I think my challenge would be is just reassess that, evaluate it. You may find it's exactly fine as it is. If it is, happy days. But just use that as an opportunity to really make sure you're getting full value from the opportunity that cohort-based format affords.
Great, thank you. Are there any types of courses that shouldn't use cohorts?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So interestingly enough, some of our clients do different versions. So they would have. So the challenge sometimes you've got with cohort-based learning is it is a fixed number of seats typically, and it also happens at a certain number of times. So that's an advantage in that you can use it for marketing, and we've talked about those bits. But it's also a disadvantage. If someone wants to get started straight away, then you are putting a slight delay in that. So that's something worth thinking about. I'd say it's more of from a commercial decision. But what some of our clients do is they have different options. So they have a do it yourself option, which is the on-demand version, and then they use the same course, slightly augment it, but they have it do it together version. So where you pay a premium to join a group of like-minded people that do it together. They also have other ones where they do it, do it one-on-one. So where they have a coach. So it depends on what you're trying to do as a subject expert, but that might be one way to think about it is how can you have a different value, we call it a value ladder, or a different product set, depending on what that person wants to achieve. If someone just wants to get down and get on with it, and their outcome, we always talk about online courses are a shortcut to an outcome or a shortcut to a transformation. If that shortcut is time is of the essence, maybe the on-demand version. If it's actually about maximizing the impact and growing network and really going deep into a subject, perhaps a cohort-based format is best. So long answer short is do both.
Great, that's awesome. What is the most unique thing you've seen a client do to add social elements?
Okay. Certainly we've called them kind of offline missions with one client. So they've actually got to go in. So the course itself, the on-demand content is all priming them to go out and do things. So one of our clients does a lot around having difficult conversations. So they're set the challenge that they have to go, and basically they're primed to do this and they're shown how to do it, but they're primed to go out there and have a difficult conversation, usually around performance management or talent management. Then they've got to come back and talk about it in the live workshop. Personal brand, it's all about being out there and communicating well. So, and using, having gravitas in a call and using their voice to get more impact. So what they've got to do is they've got to practice certain things and then come into the call and actually deliver that. And they don't really care what they say, but it's how you say it. So it's all about thinking about what can people do away from the screen and bring that back into the digital experience.
That's great, thank you. Do you have any clients that meet daily instead of weekly?
We don't at the moment, but I could see that working really well from like almost like a sprint mindset. So if over 7 days, I think it'd be quite intense. But I can imagine that would work. For example, that could work really well from almost like an induction perspective, like a brand new business induction where people need to get up to speed fast. You could if you needed to deliver that digitally because you had a remote team, that could work really, really well. I don't see why not.
Great, thank you. You mentioned that videos may take a lot of adjusting. What are some video tips that you have?
Okay. I'll tell you what. Let me think about that. We'll write a newsletter. Sign up for a newsletter, and I'll send that out in the next couple of weeks. How about that?
Perfect. I
Yeah.
think that's
So
great.
video tips. How to get the most out of the video tips.
Awesome.
Okay.
Any other questions? That was our last one. Oh, I just got one. Is it possible to set up a course where the individual student works through the course without supervision and has to complete a test before they can get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could just use LearnDash as is. I don't think you need Cohort Manager for that. You could just use LearnDash as is to deliver that.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think this was fantastic. Thank you, guys. If anybody has any questions for you, Andy and Mark, they can email you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to do it is if you go to the training-spark.com, drop us an email or an inquiry through the form. We'd love to help you. We're really passionate about cohort-based learning. I think it's an overlooked opportunity for many people. So if we can support more people on that journey, then we'd love to.
Awesome. That sounds great. And we will be sending a follow-up email to everybody who attended with the recording and with Andy's contact info if you want to go through that method. Awesome.
Thanks for all the great questions.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you all, and thank you, Andy and Mark. Yep, we'll send you guys a follow-up email by the end of the week. So this was fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.